2:56 a.m., the silence of the Caribbean night shatters. A high-explosive round slams into the starboard hull of a United States Coast Guard cutter. Alarms scream. Steel buckles. In 1 second, a routine law enforcement patrol transforms into a desperate fight for survival. The Venezuelan captains firing those shots believe they are engaging in a localized skirmish to protect a drug route. They are wrong. They have just activated a total war protocol. The response coming for them isn't a diplomatic protest. It is a terminal kinetic event moving at supersonic speed. To utterly erase the aggressor from the map, you need to understand how quickly the hunter becomes the prey when the US Navy decides to saturate a target grid. To understand the scale of this fatal miscalculation, look at the tactical reality at 2:56 a.m. Visibility is near zero. The sea state is rough. The US cutter is operating alone in international waters, tracking a suspicious contact when the radar lights up with 3 hostile signatures. These aren't converted fishing boats. These are purpose-built Venezuelan fast attack craft, armed with 76mm rapid-fire cannons and anti-ship missiles. They swarm the cutter, using their speed and numbers to bracket the American ship. The asymmetry is terrifying. The cutter is designed for law enforcement, stopping smugglers, rescuing sailors. Its defenses are meant for low-intensity conflict. The Venezuelan ships are built for murder. The first volleys are brutal. Rounds tear through the superstructure, disabling the primary search radar and wounding crew on the bridge. From the perspective of the Venezuelan commanders, this looks like a decisive victory. They have superior firepower. They have 3 hulls against 1. They believe that numerical superiority in this specific grid square equals dominance. But this is outdated thinking. They are looking at the ocean surface, assuming the fight is limited to what they can see with their eyes. They don't realize that the moment that first round impacted the cutter, the engagement ceased to be a naval skirmish and became a global data event. The instant the hull was breached, the cutter's communications officer hit the flash override key. This isn't a standard distress call that filters through a chain of command. This is a direct injection of data into the Southern Command battle network. It bypasses the bureaucrats. It bypasses the diplomats. It goes straight to the tactical watch floor where decisions are measured in seconds. The data packet contains everything: the cutter's coordinates, the classification of the incoming fire, and the hostile intent of the Venezuelan vessels. The rules of engagement shift instantly. In a standard patrol, you operate under strict constraints: shout, shove, show presence. But when a US military asset takes direct fire, the ROE flips to hostile act. The objective changes from deterrence to neutralization. There is no negotiation phase here. The US Navy operates on a principle of zero tolerance for kinetic aggression against its ships. This doctrine dictates that the response must not just match the enemy's force, it must overwhelm it so completely that the enemy ceases to exist as a fighting force before they can fire a second salvo. We are talking about a response calculated to break the will of the enemy command structure instantly. The Venezuelan captains are still maneuvering, closing the distance to finish off the cutter. They are celebrating in the wheelhouse, thinking they've pushed the Americans out of their zone. They don't feel the shift in the air pressure. They don't see the data streams igniting across the hemisphere. They are still fighting a surface battle, completely unaware that the kill box has already been drawn around them. The cutter is taking damage, yes. It is bleeding, but it is also the bait, and the trap is already snapping shut from the sky above. At 3:15 a.m., 19 minutes after the first impact on the cutter, the atmosphere shifts. The Venezuelan captains are still focused on the burning American ship, but their tactical reality has already collapsed. They just don't know it yet. High above the cloud deck, invisible to the naked eye, and ghosting across their primitive radar screens, the first layer of the response arrives. It isn't a fighter jet. It's a P-8A Poseidon. You might think of this as a maritime patrol aircraft, a sub-hunter. In this scenario, it is the quarterback of the entire kill chain. It doesn't need to fire a shot to end the fight. Its job is absolute domain awareness. It scans the ocean surface with sensors so sensitive they can detect the heat bloom of the Venezuelan engines against the cold water. It establishes the God's eye view, locking down the battle space and preparing the board for the strike assets. But the P-8A isn't working alone. This is where the modern way of war terrifies the uninitiated. Dropping into the grid from high altitude is a flight of MQ-9B Sea Guardians. We aren't talking about a single drone buzzing around taking pictures. This is a networked swarm. They disperse, creating a multi-angle perimeter around the enemy formation. This is the concept of sensor fusion in action. The P-8A manages the data, and the MQ-9Bs provide the persistent, unblinking stare. They feed real-time video, radar signatures, and electronic emissions into a single, shared targeting picture. Every turn the Venezuelan ships make, every frequency they transmit on, is instantly catalogued and analyzed. There is no hiding, there is no running. The ocean is vast, but for these three ships, it has just become a prison cell. Then comes the silence. The Venezuelan communications officer tries to radio his command back in La Guaira to report their victory. He gets nothing but static. This is the electronic noose tightening. The US assets are flooding the spectrum with electronic warfare noise, jamming the enemy's ability to coordinate. It isn't just static. It is a wall of white noise designed to isolate each ship from the others. Their fire control radars, the eyes they use to aim their guns, suddenly wash out. Their screens fill with ghost targets and digital snow. They are blind. They are deaf. The swagger of the ambush evaporates instantly. You can imagine the panic starting to set in on that bridge. They look out the window and see only the dark ocean, but their instruments tell them they are being smothered by invisible energy. This is the psychological terror of fighting the US Navy. You don't see the enemy, you just lose your ability to function. And while they struggle with their dead consoles, the Sea Guardians are doing something even more lethal. The MQ-9Bs are now executing the most critical phase of the operation, queuing fires. They are painting every square inch of the Venezuelan hulls with invisible lasers and data streams. They are building the kill box. They are calculating the speed, the heading, and the structural weak points of the enemy vessels. They are uploading this data to a network that extends hundreds of miles away. The Venezuelan ships are no longer combatants. They are merely coordinates on a digital map waiting to be deleted. The drone swarm hovers like vultures, waiting. They don't engage. They designate. They act as the bridge between the target and the executioner. They ensure that when the hammer falls, it won't miss by a single millimeter. The enemy commanders are shouting orders, trying to reboot their systems, trying to get a lock on the wounded cutter. It's useless. The data link is established. The target grid is saturated. The heavy hitters have just checked in. At 3:35 a.m., the hammer drops. The P-8A manages the board. The Sea Guardians paint the targets, but now the executioners arrive. Screaming in at high subsonic speeds just above the wave tops are the FA-18 Super Hornets. They launched from a carrier deck hundreds of miles away the moment the flash override hit the network. This is the transition from absolute surveillance to absolute destruction. The Venezuelan captains are still fighting their ghost screens, blind and deaf, unaware that the air around them is about to become solid with high explosives. This is the Alpha Protocol in effect. It isn't a warning shot. It isn't a shot across the bow. It is the authorization for immediate, catastrophic disassembly of the threat. You need to understand the math of total saturation to grasp what happens next. In a fair fight, you calculate a firing solution that offers a reasonable chance of a hit. The US Navy fights to guarantee the result. Total saturation means launching more ordnance than the enemy has countermeasures to handle, ensuring that the probability of survival is mathematically zero. Here is how the kill chain closes. The MQ-9B drone swarm isn't just watching, it is feeding a continuous stream of fire control quality data directly into the weapon computers of the Super Hornets. There is no pilot manually punching in coordinates. There is no voice radio check asking for permission. It is machine-to-machine speed. The drones say, "Here," and the Hornets say, "Sending." It is a zero latency shot. The loop is closed before the enemy even knows the game has started. The Super Hornets are merely the delivery trucks. The network is the weapon. This integration creates an inescapable geometry of fire that no maneuver can defeat. Then comes the release. The Super Hornets pitch up and unleash a volley of AGM-84 harpoons, or perhaps the newer LR ASMs. We aren't talking about 1 or 2 missiles per ship. We are talking about a wall of ordnance. Solid rocket boosters ignite, accelerating weapons to sea-skimming altitude instantly. This is the moment the Venezuelan radar finally wakes up, but it's too late. The screen doesn't show a contact. It shows a solid ring of death closing in from all sides at 500 miles per hour. The volume of fire is designed to overwhelm the primitive point defense guns on the patrol boats. They might shoot down 1 missile, maybe 2, but they cannot shoot down 12. The air is filled with smoke trails, converging on a single point in space and time. The impact is a physics event that defies description. The warheads slam into the hulls with the kinetic energy of a freight train. We are talking about 500-pound blast fragmentation warheads designed to penetrate steel before detonating. The first missile hits the lead Venezuelan vessel amidships. It punches through the outer plating like it's wet cardboard and detonates inside the engineering spaces. The explosion doesn't just damage the engine, it overpressures the entire compartment. Bulkheads shear, fuel lines rupture instantly, atomizing thousands of gallons of diesel into a superheated aerosol that ignites in a secondary thermobaric blast. The ship's spine snaps under the stress. Metal twists into unrecognizable shapes as the vessel is literally torn in half by the release of energy. This is what we call a terminal kinetic strike. It's not about disabling the rudder or knocking out the radio. It is about vaporizing the structural integrity of the hull. The second and third missiles follow milliseconds later, impacting the magazines where the 76mm ammunition is stored. The result is total cascade failure. The ships don't sink slowly, they disintegrate. The heat is so intense it melts the aluminum superstructure. The shockwave turns the water around the impact zone into a white froth. No time for lifeboats, no time for a final transmission. In under 10 seconds, the tactical picture changes fundamentally. The P-8A radar operator watches the blips vanish. One moment, there are 3 active hostile contacts maneuvering for a kill. The next moment, there is nothing but drifting debris and a rapidly cooling heat signature. The target grid has gone from active hostile to neutralized with 100% efficiency. The smoke clears and the ocean is empty. The predator has been erased. At 4 a.m., the radio net goes dead quiet. The screaming alarms, the roar of afterburners, the thunder of impact, it all stops. The silence is heavier than the noise of the battle. The only sound in the Combat Information Center is the hum of cooling fans and the steady rhythm of heartbeats returning to normal. The P-8A Poseidon makes a final low-level pass over the coordinates, its sensors sweeping the graveyard. The radar operator confirms what the data stream already knows. Objective secured. There are no returns. The ocean surface is flat. The Venezuelan flotilla has been converted into an oil slick and drifting flotsam. This is the jarring reality of modern kinetic warfare. One minute you are engaging in total war, the next you are coordinating search and rescue. The US Navy shifts gears instantly. The Super Hornets return to the carrier, their pylons empty, and the cutter, battered but afloat, moves in to pull survivors from the water. This isn't mercy, it is the discipline of a professional force that has already proved its point. But let's zoom out. The debris field floating north of La Guaira isn't just a tactical victory. It is a strategic billboard visible from every capital in the hemisphere. The message is absolute. This engagement proves that the calculus for naval aggression has changed permanently. In the past, a rogue nation might think they could harass a US asset and get away with a diplomatic slap on the wrist. That era is over. The speed of this response, from distress call to total erasure in under 60 minutes, creates a psychological barrier that no amount of bravado can cross. You have to understand that this changes the rules of the game for everyone watching. Think about the cost analysis here. The critics will say the Navy spent millions in ordnance to save a single cutter. They are missing the point. We deployed billions of dollars in networked assets, satellites, drones, jets, surveillance aircraft to protect that one ship. That is the definition of dominance. It signals that there is no price tag too high when it comes to protecting American personnel. It proves that the US military machine can pivot the entire weight of its industrial power onto a single grid square instantly. The sheer economic weight of the response is a weapon in itself. itself. This creates what strategists call the unsurvivable zone. It is an invisible radius around every US asset. Inside this zone, hostile intent guarantees immediate annihilation. There is no gradient. There is no escalation ladder where you trade shots and see what happens. You are either safe or you are deleted. The Venezuelan command learned this the hard way. They thought they were playing a game of chicken. They didn't realize the road they were driving on was already rigged to explode. The real lesson here is the validation of the drone swarm queuing fires model. This is the death knell for traditional surface skirmishes. In the old days, you needed ship-to-ship visibility. You needed a fair fight. Now, the MQ-9Bs and the network do the heavy lifting. The enemy dies without ever seeing who killed them. They are fighting ghosts while being hunted by machines. This technology strips away the fog of war for us and weaponizes it against them. It turns the ocean into a transparent killing floor where there is nowhere to hide. The mission is complete, but the lesson is permanent. They attacked a Coast Guard cutter and lost their entire existence in less than an hour. That is the brutal efficiency of total saturation. The combination of persistent drone swarms and overwhelming kinetic power creates an unsolvable math problem for any aggressor. If you want to see how we break down the next hypothetical total war scenario, you need to subscribe right now. When you cross the line, the Navy doesn't negotiate, it dominates. Game over.